Hello, welcome back to my channel. This guy.
You gotta smile like when you come on camera. That's what they teach you. You know? Yeah. Go ahead. It's your show. But you can also tune in to the Odell Bazell Show. We're on Google Podcast and Apple Podcast, and we're going to be on Spotify, and we're also going to.
Oh my God.
There is a show called the Odell Bazell Show. It's my podcast. So.
Another shameless plug.
Shameless plug, baby.
This guy. He's really like this in real life. This is our life, raw and uncut. Anyway, today we're going to talk about our adoption journey. In part one, we talked about infertility and how it led to all this other stuff, including adoption, how it led me to want to become healthier and trying to have another baby. So you can thank infertility for Sierra, the baby doula, because without infertility, I would never become a doula, and I wouldn't care anything about health stuff. Nothing.
And I would be able to probably eat some Oreos.
Yep, so thank you, infertility, for that. That's the gift that won't stop giving. Anyway, moving along. So our adoption journey, like I said in the previous video, I wanted to adopt, but he was not necessarily on board with it. Not really quite sure why he wasn't on board with it, but when we decided to adopt, we looked at different options. We looked at domestic adoption, which was ridiculously expensive. And for me, I kind of felt like it would be buying a baby. Like, I don't know, I just feel kind of weird about that whole thing. My best friend, who I talked about in the previous video, hey Mary, she is adopted, and she'll be on one of the later videos. We'll be talking about adoption together as well. But we had talked a lot about her own journey with dealing with all of this stuff, and I had heard about some of the concerns that the adoptees had. So I really didn't go into adoption like completely blind. Like my husband has said before, his siblings, he has some siblings that are adopted. He has cousins that are adopted. His grandmother adopted, one of his aunts was adopted. And so it's not like we had never dealt with adoption before, like we didn't know anything about adoption, but we weren't quite prepared for our particular journey, because we decided to adopt through the foster care system, and it was interesting.
Yeah, so I think this episode is really about trying to get past the stigma of adoption. And even though, like Sierra said, three of my sisters were adopted. My grandma adopted my youngest aunt, who passed away not too long ago. My uncle adopted. So I had cousins that were adopted. I didn't even know that they were adopted till I was like a grown person. And it's not like they were hiding it. It's just that they were adopted. And so the stigma that I was looking at was, these are not genetically mine. And I had a vision in my mind of what I wanted my family to look like. And I wanted my family to be complete. And then maybe we'll talk about the adoption stuff. So when Sierra was talking about, I've always wanted to adopt, I didn't go into marriage thinking, oh, I'm going to adopt one day. I always felt like people adopted because they felt a void. And at the time, I didn't feel one. So the stigma that I had to get over was that, relatives, they have your bloodline, but family has your back. So in understanding that and connecting it with the infertility journey that we've been on, it was like, well, why wouldn't we adopt? What's wrong with adopting? And I talked to my uncle. Shout out to Uncle Emerson, who adopted I don't know how many kids, but he told me because my aunt Linda couldn't have kids, and he said that to us it was kind of a no brainer. It was just, well, God put this kid on earth, and their biological parent, for whatever reason, couldn't take care of them. We're looking for a child to take care of. Why not? So I think when he said it to me like that, and talking about healthy process, tell them that they're adopted. Don't hide it from them. Tell them that they're adopted. Don't talk bad about their parent. Just say that you have two mommies. The way he explained, you have two mommies. You have your earth mommy. You have your angel mommy. Like your mommy who adopted you, your angel mommy. Like your earth mommy, she got you to this earth. Your angel mommy was assigned to you by God to take care of you. And so when he said it like that, it was like, okay, it made sense. And then we got into the saga, like that. So that, like, before we started all of that, we originally got into it because we had Michaela, our biological daughter, and Michaela was starting to get older, and she didn't have a sibling because we were going through the infertility challenge, the secondary infertility. So we were like, okay, we're going to adopt a kid to bridge the gap between, Michaela and the other baby that we'll eventually have. And so I said three of my sisters were adopted. So one of their moms is having another kid. Like, this is how it started. And my dad came to me and said, listen, they're probably going to take her away. If you and Sierra, if y'all get, licensed to adopt, you can do foster to adopt. He was explaining how it worked with them. Y'all could get her, and then basically we'd be keeping her in the family, and and we were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we go through the process. If you do foster to adopt, that's one of the ways to kind of get around the cost, like that'll bring the cost down if you're looking to adopt. But when you get into foster to adopt, there's still a chance that the child could be taken away. We're going to talk about that a little later.
Right. And the thing, so with adoption, everybody usually goes in wanting to fill this void um, with a kid. And for me, that really wasn't what I was necessarily looking to do, because I can't replace the kid that I never had with another kid. Um, And I don't think that children that are adopted should be looked at as like your last option. I exhausted every option and now I want to get this kid. For me, it was just feeling like every kid should have the opportunity to have a family. And there are millions of kids out here who don't have a family. So let me be a person that can love them, that can help them. And when the opportunity came to help his younger sister be able to still be connected to her sibling, it was a no-brainer to be like, oh, well, absolutely, if it can help her not to go somewhere and then she would never see her sibling again. And one of the things that they teach you when you're going through the foster care system is that first and foremost, they try to think about what's best for the kid. Like, it's not really about you as the person. So you try to think about what's best for the kid. You try to think about keeping them with their family if you can. You do whatever you can to keep them with their family because as we've seen in research and all of these things, it usually works out better for them emotionally when they're able to stay connected with their family. It usually helps when they're with people that look like them. So, transracial adoptees sometimes have a lot of issues because they are not around people that look like them. So there's a whole slew of things that come with adoption. So when we kind of got into it and we're sitting in these classes and they're telling you these stories and they're like, we give these parents, X amount of times to get themselves together, and this is what foster care is like. We told them initially, we only want children that are already available for adoption because we don't want to deal with the back and forth of the foster care. We don't want to have to have a kid and have them taken away. Just so, when you deal with children who have already been taken away, there's already a lot of trauma. They leave one home, then you put them somewhere else, then they got to leave again. Like, we didn't want to be a part of that for a kid who could then later come back in the future and be like, well, why did you let them take me? And it's like, well, I didn't want them to, but this is what happened. So, there's nothing wrong with foster care being an option, but when you're going into this, you need to be aware that it's not about you. It's not about
Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis.
It's not about what you think should happen. It's not about what you think is best for the kid. And you still need to love them like they're going to be with you forever, because, well, not even forever, but like they're going to be in your home, like they're one of your kids, because they are, for the time that they're with you. And for some people that can be very difficult, and if you know that you can't do that you can't love that child knowing that they might not be with you, then foster care is not for you.
I want to add this too. You said that you shouldn't get in it to fill a void. Here's a spoiler alert. Most people do.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And I think if you go through the foster to adopt process, like you were saying, if you have an open mind, you'll discover that conclusion. Like, oh, woe is me, I can't have a child. But look at all of these children that have gone through all of this stuff. And I think if you go into it, it's okay to go into it and say, oh, I wasn't, life wasn't able to work out the way I wanted it to, or whatever. But if you go into that training with your heart open, you'll realize it's not about me. But here's the funny part. That's the same thing you realize when you have a regular child. Like, we had Michaela, and it was like, oh, I want to be a parent. I want to be a parent. You learn really, really quickly. It's not about what you want. It's not about what you want. And I know I was jokingly referencing the Temptations, the scene when David Ruffin was like, ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. Ain't nobody coming to see you. Like, the kid that you have naturally, they don't care about you. Not in a bad way, but they're a child. They don't know anything. And so when you foster care or adopt or whatever, it's about the child first. And so that's a tweak that is, I think, is shared with all parents. Like, whatever, if he's a biological parent, you went through secondary infertility like we did, or is primary infertility or whatever, if you just want to expand your family through adoption, whatever. And so going through the foster care to adopt, back to what we were talking about, it humbles you.
Right.
And so originally we went in, okay, we're eyeing this child that my youngest sister's mom is having, her biological mom is having. We get through the process, and
something totally different happens.
something crazy happened.
So
They let her stay. It was like you took all these kids away, and even before that, we get we get certified and all that stuff, and then that people start calling. Hey, can you take this kid? Hey, can you take this kid? Hey, can you take this kid?
we hadn't even gotten papers in the mail yet. As soon as they said, "Oh, you're certified," the calls came.
Calls. You remember the
And
first one? You remember the first one with the little boy whose mom died
yes,
and dad had given up the
yeah. So we had a series of children, and they tell you parts of the story. They don't tell you the full story. They never tell you the full
They're
story.
great salespeople.
They tell you parts of the story, and the stories pull on your heartstrings, and you're like, "Oh my God, I just need to take them all." But you can't. I mean, you just can't. If I had, you know, if I had the space, if I probably
Thank
would have
goodness we
tried
did.
to.
Thank goodness we didn't have the space.
Probably would have tried to take.
Because
I don't
every
know how
kid,
many.
you're like, because that first one, I think we
We
tried to,
but it
but
didn't
it
work
didn't
out.
work out.
Which was fine. And then we got another call and another call and another call, and they just kept coming until eventually we got the call for our first child.
Yeah,
And she is still with us today.
we adopted her, so
Yeah,
she's ours.
she's still with
Her
us
name is
today.
Rain. It's okay because
Yeah.
she's ours now.
Okay,
And that's another thing. Like with foster care, you can't share the picture of the kid. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to share the picture of the kid. You're not supposed to advertise that you're taking care of a kid because it's not legally yours. Like they're under your supervision, but they're still custody of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, for a long time, like we couldn't share Rain's picture. We couldn't say her name. She'd be in the picture. You have to cover up her face with a smiley face. Like it was a whole bunch of stuff that we couldn't do. And so her story was.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into her story.
No, we're not gonna talk about it. But I'm just saying her story was like. I still remember you calling me and telling me I was on the road, and I was like, "We gotta take her."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "We gotta take her."
Even though we said we did not want to foster, that was our biggest thing. We don't want to be foster
parents, but had to
we
get
couldn't
her.
Say no because
had to get her.
The children, they just, you go in feeling like you need to save everybody, and that's something else I want to say to foster parents. It's not your job to save these kids. They don't need a savior. They need somebody to take care of them. There's a difference. You're not saving them. You are not saving them. They need someone to love them. They're children. They deserve to be loved because that's their human right to be loved as a person, to be taken care of, to not be having to be out here going from home to home, bouncing around. No kid should have to go through that. They should have a birthday party. They shouldn't be coming with their stuff in a trash bag. Like,
she had a laundry basket.
Right. She had a little laundry basket. None of the clothes that she had fit. Like, it was so heartbreaking to see the different things that happen with these kids and how they're just kind of shuffled around, and you see their stories and you see how they have to leave their families sometimes in the middle of the night. Sometimes they go to school, never get to go back home, and then you see these children that are angry and they sometimes act out, and they'll tell you like, oh, this kid, they got all these issues and they're so this and they're so that. But what they don't understand or they don't tell you is when somebody goes through trauma, they act out. And you're 2 years old, you don't know how else to handle something. You're 8 years old, you don't know how to handle things because you're a kid, and the family that you've known since however long is now not there anymore, and that causes problems. So something that this process taught me was to not label kids as being, you know, angry when they say to you, this child has behavioral issues. It's like, well, what do you expect?
Right.
You know? So when you think about foster kids, or you think about children who are adopted, sometimes people have the stigma in their mind of, oh, these children have these behaviors and they're just so like whatever, because that's what they tell you about the kid. So before you even meet the child, they're already giving you this impression that this child is crazy, something's wrong with them, they're angry for no reason, they act out in school, they're doing this, they're doing that. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, like, you know. But then you actually meet the child, you hear about their story, you learn more about the things that they've gone through, and you can see why they're like that. And all it takes sometimes, and this is not in every case, because sometimes you do need intervention. Sometimes they will need a lot of therapy. And when we first got our daughter, she did do therapy. So we're a firm believer in doing what you have to do to support the child. If they need therapy, get them therapy. If they need speech therapy, get them speech therapy. Like, we've done a lot of different things to support her and her journey. And that's what you should do, because you are the parent taking care of the child, and that's, you know, their human right, is to be taken care of. So that's what you do. But sometimes all they need is they need a family, somebody that's going to love them, who's going to reassure them that, you know, they're going to be there. And when they start to see that, you know, this is where I'm going to be, they love me, they take care of me, they support me, their behaviors change often
Yeah.
times.
And being a parent, so we have Rain,
Mhm.
our youngest daughter. Then if you choose the foster to adopt route, what you don't want to happen can happen, because our second foster child was, you know, taken from our home, and he was with us for 7 months. We picked him up 2 days after
Fresh from the hospital.
he was born. You know, went through all of that process, and then, you know, 7 months later, um, he was taken. So the worst thing, and then like when you go through that, it's like, this is why people say they don't want to be
Right. And the
foster.
worst thing, um, you know, when you're going through it, you think, oh my God, I can't believe that this was done to me. But in his particular case, he was going to be with his siblings,
Yep.
which again, you can't think that it's about you, because again, it ain't about you, Otis. Ain't nobody coming to see you.
Nobody coming to see
Nobody
you,
came to
Otis.
see you, Otis. This is about this kid, and what's best for them, which in his case is to be with his siblings.
Right.
And it hurts, because you've raised this little person from the time that they can remember, because you're the only person they know. And now they go to be with somebody else, and that does hurt. It did hurt, but it was what was best for him. And, you know, and we didn't feel like that during that time. But
Yeah.
it was what was best for him. So
You gotta, and that's what you have to be used to. And so if you're looking at this, first of all, if you're looking at this, hopefully you have an interest, or you're thinking about it, or maybe you're just interested in our take on it. But it's something that you have to really consider, just like you would consider if you're gonna make a child, you know, through, you know, the process of relations. Like that, the amount of thought that you go through that and planning a family that way, you should think about it with foster care. Most people don't, but there are a lot of people that do.
Okay.
Like we did. We thought about it. I did, at least.
He thought
I thought about it. But but if however you're looking at this, you got to understand it's not about the kid. So we have our foster son taken,
mm-hmm.
and then we're at a place where we're like, you know what?
We're done with
We're
this.
done with this.
Don't
We don't
call
want to
me
do
no
this.
more.
Don't say nothing to me. Like, I don't want nothing.
And
And then like 2 weeks,
no,
a
it
week
wasn't
later,
2 weeks. It was like
a
6 or
week
7.
later,
Yeah.
I take the crib down?
He took the crib down.
Yeah.
We got everything was packed away. Did we even have anything left? We didn't hardly have anything left. We just was like, here,
Cool.
you taking this baby, so take all his
Take
stuff
all
with
the
him.
stuff.
We don't want no
We
more
don't
baby
want
stuff.
no more babies.
We done.
We're
Don't
done
nobody
with
call me. I ain't trying to hear
nothing.
nothing about nothing. And he's on the road.
Yeah, I'm in Miami, Florida. I remember I was getting ready for a speech. I'm focused. It's right near 9/11, and I'm just focused on that speech. And then I get a call talking about, oh, there's a safe surrender is what they called it. And I was like, what's a safe surrender?
Right.
Which is basically you just think about it like somebody just brings a baby to the hospital or to the fire station or, whatever. Just think about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady's like, in all my years, I haven't seen this one before. And I've been with the agency for like 20 years. Would you like to be considered? It's a baby boy and he's only, whatever. And I'm just like, baby boy just left, safe surrender,
sure,
whatever. Again, we've been through this because multiple times we've been considered. We even went and met with a board to adopt 2 kids, two kids. Oh yeah, we're considering you, blah, blah, blah. And we still waiting.
They never even
called us back. So we're like, sure, it's a baby, safe surrender, whatever. The same day. So I go, I call Sierra and was like, yeah, safe surrender. And Sierra's like, okay, whatever. I go give my speech. I'm on my way to the airport, get a call. Oh, you were picked. Picked for what? They picked you to have the baby, and then she's like going through this. The baby's probably not going anywhere because the mother just left the baby at the hospital. The baby doesn't have a name, all of this stuff, and I'm like, what is happening? And so I told Sierra this, and she's like,
what?
So
I don't have nothing.
We don't have nothing. We gotta go get this. We gotta go get this. When are we supposed to pick the baby up? I was like, I don't land until later tonight. We would pick the baby up tomorrow. All this stuff, and it's a totally different experience. So, just sharing that to say that it was totally different than with Rain, with our daughter that we adopted, with the foster son that we had. And then this, because with Rain, we didn't know if she was going to stay or not at first. Then, situations led to, oh yeah, she's definitely staying. Then with the son, it was kind of like, don't know, maybe, nah, he ain't staying. And so then there's like,
here's your kid.
Here's your kid. And it was literally like, when I tell the story to other people, it was like, they were just like,
here's a baby.
Here's a baby. We went to the hospital. I think they gave us a piece of paper. Nobody was there except the nurses. They were just like, here you go.
We're like, we just leave?
Yeah, we felt like we're stealing a kid.
Am I being punked?
Here you go. Here's the kid.
So we just walk out.
And like a year later, it was done. He didn't have a name. The mom didn't do the safe surrender she didn't do the same. I'm just walking people through to where stuff might not align. She didn't do it the right way. So it's like, we weren't supposed to know anything about her, but we found out a little bit, like her name and stuff. But usually in those situations, you don't know anything. All you know is that you have a child. So it was very atypical So odds are, if you're looking at this, that's probably not going to happen, but you never know. And you just have to be, the reason why we're telling you this and the little details, you have to be fluid. You have to be fluid with how, okay, this is how it's done. And as a foster parent, there are going to be people up in your crib all the time. All the time.
Every month.
You fill out this paper. Did you get this? Did you see this? Did you go to these certification classes? Do you supposed to go all the time to get your hours? You gotta get your hours. You gotta get all this. You can't have guns in the house, or if you have guns, you have to do all this stuff. If you got pets, there's so much stuff you have to do. But if you choose the foster to adopt route, in my personal opinion, I think it helps you grow more as a person, and you have the ability to impact more kids, because there are also other people that they get into foster parenting just to foster.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at this and maybe, you don't want to have that, family where you want to foster multiple people. We were in classes with people, I fostered 11 children. I fostered 27 children. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. There's also a lot of support. What are they called? Where people keep your kids? Like we had it's not drop-in care. That's not what it's called. That's not what it's called at all. But you have people that they're also certified, and they'll kind of keep your kid if you want respite care. Yeah. There it is, respite, where they'll keep your kid for a weekend if they can't go with you, or a week you drop in care. But so and as a foster, as you're licensed or certified as a foster care parent, you can do that too. So just for the weekend, hey, I'll sign up for respite. I'll do that. So there's a lot of things that you can do to impact people. And again, if you think back in your mind, if you weren't adopted or you weren't in foster care, think about the parents that you stayed over their house and you had a good time. Think about the Meemaws of the world. Shout out to Meemaw, the unlicensed.
Meemaw's still alive.
I don't know if Meemaw's still alive, but Meemaw took care of me and like 20 other kids. My dad used to drop us off at Meemaw's house where he worked third shift. And boy, it'd be us, we'd be looking at the Mickey Mouse Club on Squiggly Disney Channel, like, because it wasn't clear. We'd be like, is that Justin Timberlake? Who is that? And so, if you're licensed, you can't have that many kids in your house.
Oh yeah, I remember we had a daycare.
Dang, we did have a daycare.
We did.
Gosh.
We done a lot of stuff, y'all.
We done too much, man. Team doing too much. In 2020, we're gonna open up that Facebook group, Team Doing Too Much. Parents, entrepreneurs, always trying to do too much, trying to take over the world, and then the world sits on your face, and then you suffocate, and you come back to life, and like, nah, I don't want to do that no more. And then you keep doing it, and you do even more stuff.
Oh my God.
And then you're swallowed.
We got ADHD. We got ADD. That's how it comes out.
Got too much stuff going on, man. How many businesses you got now? You got 13 of them?
I just got two. I got two.
Yeah, your PhD, your ND, your MED, your ABBD. Like getting all this stuff.
No.
All these certifications.
Finishing
your PhD.
Then I'm getting a second PhD.
You're teaching the Chinese children how to take over the world.
Chinese kids
English as a second language, English as a third language, because some of them can't even speak English as a 10th language or whatever. Doing all of that. I'm writing 7 books at a time and speaking and doing all this stuff. 13 podcasts I got going on. And all that. So that's why I said we're going to start something else. We're going to start the Team Doing Too Much group. And we're never going to update it because we're doing too much. Did I update that? That's your turn. But foster care is definitely something that if you have a heart for children, you should do. Mm-hmm. Definitely going to be an advocate doing more of that. And as it relates to your health, and I'll give it back to Sierra to close out, As it relates to your health, you know, she's a holistic health coach, which is more than just physical.
Mhm.
It's about understanding that you have the opportunity and ability to impact a life. Positive mental health, make sure that you're taking kids out of abusive situations and you're being nurturing, you're helping them heal, you're giving them purpose, and you're being a part of their growth. Because I believe the most powerful thing that we can do is give the world a healthy, happy human. So I
Right.
think foster care and adoption is a great way to do that.
Right. And don't be afraid to do things like therapy. Like I said before, children, people in general need therapy. Like it's people walking around here that need help but won't get it or feel like they can't get it. They've been discouraged from getting it because of the way that our society views therapy, and more so Black people, the way
Mhm.
we view therapy. But we do our best to support our kids. You know, if you need speech therapy, we have speech therapists up in here 3 times a week
Mhm.
trying to help our baby girl, because she needed it. She went to play therapy, because she was dealing with some stuff
Mhm.
and she needed it. If I ever feel like she need to go back to therapy again, she'll be in there. If I feel like Michaela needs therapy, she'll be in therapy. I probably need to be in therapy.
I'm in therapy right now.
You're in therapy right now.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I was supposed to be a therapist too, but I didn't do that. But I
Yeah.
kind of do it all the time.
I have a
Anyway,
sex therapist.
okay.
I told you about her.
Yeah, I know.
I told you about her. Shout out to Justine, sex
Hey,
therapist.
Justine. Thank you,
Yeah.
girl.
But wait a minute. Was that a shot? Anyway.
No, it wasn't.
Anyway.
I was just saying. Stop. This is not the place for that.
Are
Anyway,
we ending this now?
yes.
We don't want to bore the people.
Yes, we're gonna end it. Apparently, he'll be back because he makes things funny and interesting.
Odell Bazell Show. The OdellBazellShow.com.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come and take over your show, like you come and taking over.
You've been on my show.
Yeah, but I
Been on.
didn't put in shameless plugs on your show.
What's the name of your podcast?
Sierra the BB Doula.
Okay, we'll work on that name. We'll see y'all at the next one. Until the next time, this is the Bazell Show.
Get off my show. Bye.